Today's scripture reading is Acts 7:55 and 56. But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing at the right hand of God, and said, Look, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God.
Friends, I'd like to bring to your attention here about that text. Stephen was sharing with me, I was trying to remember the scripture reading that I had listed there because of the way it's brought out. In describing Christ, the story of Stephen. Now, Acts 7:55. Now, I told him, it's quite a text. I told him, and I said, but I want you to read the second, the text right after it, the verse right after, following that. And I'm going to read it to you after we read this here. I want you to take yourselves into the scene here that's involved, that this text is involved with Stephen. And it's portraying what takes place in this scene here, where Stephen is just about taken out and stoned. It's describing what he sees. And he makes a claim about this. Portrays the events right there leading up to his stoning, before those stones were hurled at him. And it says that Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, looked up into heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. The next verse says that he said, Stephen speaks, and he says, Behold, I see the heavens open, and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God. What do you see there? You see Christ was standing. He wasn't going to be taken as sitting down. And this should give us encouragement today, friends. You know, Christ is there standing for each one of us. He's not going to take the trials, the problems that you have in your own lives sitting down. Now, with that in mind, I want to take and I want you to lead you to, I want you to turn your Bibles to Matthew 23. Now, this chapter, you maybe come across it in maybe your devotional time, or studying alone, maybe, or maybe with your whole family there, and decided to read the chapter of the week. But it's a hard-hitting chapter, and I'm giving it for a reason there. We're going to read it together now. And then we're going to discuss this, friends. And it starts here. I'm going to have the words up here with you, friends, and I want you to follow along with your Bible. And Christ is taking a stand here again. You're going to find him. I want you to put yourselves into the scene here. He's standing for the last time there in the courtyard of the temple in Jerusalem. And he's exclaiming here point that he wants to get across, because there's something very defined here. Maybe it has a little reference to what we need to know today. Starting with verse 1, Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must obey them and do everything they tell you. But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach." We've heard that before, haven't we? No, it goes on and says, "They tie up heavy loads and they put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them." Everything they do is done for men to see. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogue. They love to be greeted in the marketplace and to have men call them rabbi. Now, go down to verse 11. Jesus gave instruction about this situation that he sees here. And he continues. He says, "The greatest among you," do I have that up there? I haven't. Okay. "The greatest among you will be your servant. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the kingdom of heaven in men's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as you are. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former, you blind guides. You strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees! First clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will be clean. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of dead men's bones and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves. Have I changed that yet? I didn't, did I? Now let me start again. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of dead men's bones and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our forefathers, we would not have taken part with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So you testify against yourselves, and that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of the sin of your forefathers, you snakes, you brood of vipers. How will you escape being condemned to hell? Now, after that devotional time, we'll pray, we'll kneel down and pray, right? Oh, friends, it's hard-hitting when we read words like this. But, there may be something there for us, ourselves. What is Jesus doing here in those verses? Hypocrites, blind guides, fools, snakes, and sons of snakes. Now you probably hear the gravel in my voice as I'm reading those words. Because, that's the only thing I can produce. Just hard. My heart is not softened for the touch that Jesus was. It's an interesting thing for us to know, though, that Jesus, we understand, when he said those words and uttered those scathing rebukes, there were tears in his voice. Now, you try that. You stand tomorrow morning in front of the mirror, and you say with tears in your voice, snakes, sons of snakes. I've tried it, and I can't do that. But Christ did have. Now, is there anything in this passage, you think, for us today? The interesting thing is that this story took place right before Jesus' death. It was the last week on earth for him. This was his last moment to stand there on the grounds of the temple and also say to the people that were there to look at your house. Your house is left to you desolate, he said. This is his last stand there in that temple grounds. And why did he do this? There were tears in his voice when he was saying that. And he shouted and he exclaimed those words. And then he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, with tears in his eyes. Why did Jesus do that? Did he just lose his temper and said, this is it, I can't take it any longer? What was it? Or if we had been there in that crowd, would we probably have seen another dimension in the body language of Christ? Would we have seen the tears in his eyes? What can we learn from this story? It's hard-hitting words, but there's something there for us, for today especially. The truth is that Jesus was looking at sick people, a bunch of sickies, if you want to put it in words that really give it. We see that today. People around us that are just not sick, doing well, they're sick. Their leaders, those at that time, were sick. And Jesus saw that. There was something that needed to cease from what was going on in the community of people that he loved. They had a disease. We call it today mere morality. There are many Christians around in our own life today. We can look out there and they're just replicants of mere morality people, mere moralists, which means that they're good external conformists. They're good on the outside, friends. And he describes that there in those words. They do all the right things, but they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And we can be like that ourselves. I find myself doing the same thing sometimes. And I catch myself and I say, what's wrong? And Christ saw that in individuals. And he needed to make this point the week before his crucifixion, friends. That being right, looking good on the outside was not enough. And the nature of the problem is clearly portrayed in just these verses that we read here. Remember, Jesus said, you hypocrites, you're clean on the outside, and that isn't going to do it. What did he say you needed to do? You had to clean the inside first. Then the outside would be clean. Now, I remember, I'm good at washing dishes. And Jesus uses this analogy in those words there. My mother used to have my brother and sisters and me wash dishes all the time. And we would choose whether or not we wanted to wash dishes. It was my turn to wash dishes or dry them. And you know, the course of drying them took a little bit longer than washing them. You could wash them quickly. And I remember watching my brother one time, and this brought to mind the evidence of washing dishes. But my brother would wash the dish, my sister would be washing the dishes, my brother was drying. But he had to put the dishes out, take them out of the water that was rinsing them, and then he'd dry them up and put them away. Well, he was not catching up. He had more dishes there and she was going to finish before him. So he'd grab a dish and he'd walk around like he was putting it away and he'd push it on the other side of her. And I was laughing in the other room as I was watching him. She continually just couldn't find out where these dishes coming from. Well, they got cleaned pretty well. She finally said, "Mama, look at Dean. He's making me wash these over again." Well, you know, I remember one thing about washing dishes. Washing pots and pans. Now, I've washed the inside. My dad loved the pans to be clean on the inside. You know, if you don't wash the pans, the metal inside stays a little glossed over. If you don't wash them clean enough and scrub them good enough, that even after you dry them, they leave little streaks of food, especially because they've been sitting in the hot stove for such a long time. But I found out if you washing them good enough on the inside, you spending a lot of time cleaning the inside and making it shiny, the outside became clean too. And Jesus used this analogy of the same way that you clean the inside, the outside's going to be clean too. Now, can we place ourselves in people's shoes? That day, when he told them those words. Our church was told a long time ago something very important. This is taken from Review and Herald, February 18th, 1890. And it says, "The trials of the children of Israel and their attitude just before the first coming of Christ have been presented before me again and again to illustrate the position of the people of God in their experience before the second coming of Christ." Now, if you want to know what the people were like back then during Christ, when Christ was standing there in the synagogue, not in the synagogue, but in the courtyard of the temple, all you have to do is get up and look in the mirror. And ouch, that hurts. Because, friends, we're doing the same thing sometimes. The same thing that those people were doing back there. And Christ saw that there was something needed to be done here. So he mentions those things to the people there in that crowd. Now, the crux of the problem here, especially for us today, is something that has plagued Christianity for a long time. And that's mistaking good behavior for Christianity. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Jesus talked about it. Looking good on the outside. You go and you whitewash those tombstones down at the graveyard, and you make claims that if it was me back then, I would not have persecuted and done the things to these prophets. But you go home, and it wasn't just maybe a week later, a few hours later, that they were taking him up there to that lonely hill a public hill, a lonely cross. You know, if we focus on behavior in terms of life and theology today and evangelism, we fill the church with strong people. We do. But you know, strong people can make it. They've practiced. They look good on the outside. They can conform outwardly by the rules and the regulations, the standards of the church, and by what is expected of them. And they don't question the reasons or the rules. Why the rules or regulations? They just go along with them just to be admired and accepted. The problem that strong people in the church have is that the church does become full of strong people. And they become candidates for Phariseeism. Phariseeism, I think, is the right term on that. They start judging all those that are below them in terms of their performance. And this is what Jesus was doing there. He was trying to talk to them about this form of following others in the same sense. He was trying to take the mask off of these religious leaders in the presence of the multitude there. He was trying to help these people understand just before his death that these leaders were looking good on the outside, but they were rotten on the inside. So when Jesus repeatedly called them hypocrites and fools and blind snakes, he had a purpose in mind. He wasn't just getting it off his chest, so to speak, or venting his spleen. The masses there, he saw, were being led by sick people. And he had that purpose in mind of letting them understand what was going on. Jesus told them on more than one occasion that they needed to get to a doctor. He said it was not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. You know, and then he says, you know, go ahead and learn what that means. He didn't just explain, he said, you search and see what I'm trying to talk about. Learn about what is being said. Now in Revelation 3, we're told that the church is in existence just before Jesus comes, is called what? Remember, it's the last church. Laodicea, yes. What's the description of that church? Lukewarm, yes. You know, that's good for us to know. And what is lukewarm made of? Hot and cold, right? Now, you can go to the kitchen sink, and I don't mean by going to the kitchen sink and you're hot on the left side and cold on the right side. That doesn't go along with it. But it means that that you are a combination of both hot and cold. You haven't made up your mind which one way or the other. You're lukewarm. And in Matthew 23, we find out that lukewarm is, means that we're hot on the outside, by what Jesus said, but you're cold on the inside. Now that's what makes lukewarm. People are either hot and cold, or they're mixed up on this whole occasion here, friends. They're doing all the right things for all the wrong reasons and not understanding. Now, a few years ago, in the 80s, I think it was, seemed like in Colorado, everyone wanted to move to Colorado, and they wanted to move up to Boulder, Colorado. They all became vegetarians. They all started wearing Nike shoes and Jordan shoes and started jogging and looking healthy. Friends, you know, I heard this phrase mentioned. They're nothing but conformed nonconformists. Trying to look good, trying to look the same, just to be accepted and follow along with the rest of it. Now, God uses the illustration to point out why he was sick to his stomach. And he says, because you are lukewarm, he doesn't like this condition. Okay? He says, neither hot nor cold, you can't make up your mind, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. He's saying lukewarm stuff just makes me sick. And I just want to throw up. Lukewarm is not acceptable to God. Has never been, never will be, friends. When Jesus left the temple that last time, he took a stand. He said, this needs to come out. And he pointed out the symptoms. He described them. And he diagnosed the disease of all those people that were sick there that stood before him. So he was like a doctor, mentioning what the symptoms were, what the diagnosis is. He took a stand, pointed out all these things, and he showed them the people who had led those people to the point of rejecting the Messiah, the great physician Jesus. Now we need to take a look at our own hearts today and try to get a diagnosis of where we're standing. How are we going to diagnose the sickness? Well, you know, I can go to the clinic over here on 2nd Avenue and I can walk in and say, I need a blood test. And the lady there at the counter says, oh, who's your doctor? And I say, oh, I need a doctor? Well, yes, you do need a doctor. Friends, I can't do the diagnosis myself on myself. I am not the diagnostician here. And I'm reminded by this, friends, in this whole story here, that I'm not big enough to do that. Are we big enough to be able to diagnose ourselves in the condition that we are? Now, we can say, you know, Paul says to examine ourselves. He says, in 2 Corinthians 13:15, he says, examine yourselves. And so we examine ourselves. We study our Bible and we examine. We take a look at our behavior, though. We notice how we failed and where we succeeded in life. And we begin to examine ourselves in that regard. A behavior-centered religion. But that's not what Paul was saying. If you read the whole verse, what did he say? He says, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. That is, examine yourself to see whether you are in a trusting relationship with Jesus. Now we're right back to what this whole message of Christ here on this earth is all about. Our example. Live by faith in Jesus Christ alone. We hear that message. The third angel's message. Here are the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The faith of Jesus Christ that talks about. Then, now, what is this relationship? We know what it is. We're talking about it. We're talking more about it now. You recognize, Susan mentioned also, other churches are doing this right now themselves. They're noticing where their need is really. It's building that faith and trusting relationship with Jesus. That's a relational theology. It involves a person and the experience, and what we call faith, or trust and belief. Are you in touch also with the doctor? Jesus is the one who tells us and explains to us through His Spirit whether or not we are in treatment, because we're all sick. We all have a sickness, friends. We're born in a world with sickness and sin, and self as its basis, and self-centeredness as its big symptom shows us this, friends. Then there's the great diagnostician that we have, that we're studying about, in fact, this quarter. Who's that? His initials are HS. The Holy Spirit, right? And Jesus said, and we've read this in our Sabbath school lesson, when He comes, He will convict us, convict the world of righteousness and of judgment and of sin, because they didn't do the right things, because they did all the bad things. No, it doesn't say that. It says, you convict us in regard, because He will convict the world because men do not believe in me. Again, back to the faith. What is belief? Trust. Faith in Jesus. Because they do not believe me. Not because of the things I'm doing wrong right now. I'm not taking away from what we shouldn't be doing, friends, but there's where lies the secret to all. If we have Jesus with us, how can we sin? Because He's there. Presence. His presence is there with us. Jesus said that. No, not me. He said it. He said, because you don't trust me, I need to work with you and show you how that's done. It has nothing to do with behavior, how well I'm doing. The issue is knowing God. And we had that as a phrase last year before our new pastor came, knowing God as we should know Him, friends. Letting Him take care of the sicknesses. I think that Kevin mentioned that in our Sabbath school this morning. That let Him take care of the sickness that we have and our problems. Allowing Him to do. Then with the anticipation that Susan mentioned in Sabbath school at the beginning, it is not built up on just those things. After reading Matthew 23 here, friends, sometimes I get so excited at things like this, and after reading this chapter, I just want to lift our leaders of our church. Oh, I'm sorry, friends. My heart is not. I still have that hardness. I want the Lord to soften in my heart. I want Him to show me how to speak like Christ to my friends and my family members and my peers also, with tears in my voice, asking them to see what Jesus really offers them. You see, the thing is, they don't know that they have this problem, many of them. The Laodiceans, they didn't know it. Lukewarm people do not know it, that they have the problem. They can't see it for themselves. And it's difficult to explain to them. Let's take a look at some of the symptoms now of lukewarm people. In verse 3 of Matthew 23, it says that they do not practice what they preach. Now, we know how that works. I don't have to go into a long discussion. Jesus tells us to go ahead and do what they do, but don't do what they do. No, do what they say, He says. But don't do what they do. Then in verse 4, there's a burden that's placed on others that He says that's given by these certain leaders, these people that people are following them. And we can see kind of replication right here today. Before even Jesus comes the second time, that things are taking place the same way. They tie up heavy loads and put them on men's shoulders. A fanatic is like that. He'll tell them, he'll make threats to them, he'll try to cram religion down another person's throat. In detail, I remember I wanted to share this with our Sabbath school this morning. A grandmother in one of our churches, her two granddaughters came to her, and they made a string of fake pearls, beautiful pearls, that put a necklace for her to wear. And they asked her to put it on, and they were so happy that she placed it on, and she made over it like it was the most beautiful thing that she ever received. And they just were glad. Well, they came over the next Sabbath because she had invited them to go to church with her. And she had forgotten all about the necklace, but they hadn't. And they asked her, please, Grandma, put those necklaces on. You're going to wear it to church so you can show everyone. And she thought about it, but she put them on. Grandmother would do that. She put those necklaces on, and it just filled her chest, covered so many beads on it. Beautiful, red, white, different color. And she went to church. As she's going to church, she kind of pulled her overcoat a little snugly over. You could still see the shining necklace underneath. And she went through church and everything. And at the end of church, as they're walking out, and their granddaughters are holding their little friend in their hand, there was a woman that had recognized and noticed something that at the beginning, one of the leading figures in the church, waiting there at the outside of the church there before you walked on. And she reached in underneath that grandma's home and yanked those pearls, and beads started flowing out, and those little girls went up picking up beads. Friends, those little girls didn't want to go to church anymore. And we wonder, we have these loads of, we shouldn't do these things, we shouldn't act this way, and we carry it right in amongst us and not knowing the caring. The caring for each other. Do we go to other lands to dress them up because they're uncovered? Is that the reason we're going there? We're going there to share with them the love of Jesus, not to try and change their attitudes and the word I'm thinking about, the way of living. There's people, they also work, they do works in church. And why? Everything they do is done for men to see. We notice here in these verses. They want to be noticed, friends. They want to be in the spotlight sometimes. I found myself doing that sometimes. It's hard not to be proud about what you've done, maybe for helping the church or whatever, friends. These people have fallen into a blind guide and blind follower pattern, and somehow they continue just to revere these leaders, friends, though, that Jesus was talking about. Jesus also said that these people hindered others from getting into the kingdom. It says, verse 13, that they shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in men's faces. Now this is really tragic here. What does it mean by that? Because, the kingdom of heaven back then was, or the kingdom of glory, was spoken there. It had not come, friends. Jesus was coming there to show them the kingdom of grace. The kingdom of glory is taking place now before Jesus comes now. For we'll be seeing Him in His splendor, in His glory, when He shows Himself in the clouds, friends. We live in the days of the kingdom of glory. But we will never see the kingdom of glory unless we experience the kingdom of grace first. Which means we will never enter heaven, the heavenly country, until we have had that relationship with Jesus, the one we're talking about. Learning to know Him and follow Him. That great physician, He's a doctor. He's going to diagnose you, friends. And it's a terrible thing to keep other people from understanding that message in the Bible. And this is what He came here to portray to everyone. Now there's another occasion when Jesus said, in John 12, verse 32, He said, I, describes this altogether. He said, I, Jesus speaking here, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all men to myself. Right there, Jesus is speaking as God. And He could say that. If I am lifted, I will draw all men unto me. These religious leaders that He was speaking of, they had it all backwards. They said, if we can draw men unto us, then we will be lifted up. You can do the same thing today, friends. It's not hard to do. I'm guilty of it sometimes, and you know, we need to pray. We need to pray for each other, especially. But it's all a farce as far as looking good, to advertise success, or just drawing all people to myself. You see, these people during that time, there was an inconsistency here which is another symptom that's described. They were great tithe payers. They were great Sabbath keepers, great on health reform. They wouldn't even eat a gnat that fell into their soup. They were great on family worship. They're at the scene of Christ on the cross. They were anxious, ready to go home to have sundown worship. Verse 23 says they had no mercy, no faith, no justice. Basically, friends, he was saying they had no love. Love is the essence of all. God is love. It's an unconditional love that He shares with each one of us. So what's the challenge here in these verses that we read? Well, if I'm in danger of being sick today, like those leaders back there, I better find out where the treatment is first. And here's where we get to the real good part. Jesus said the work must begin where? You remember? The inside. He said we need to clean the inside first. Now, beginning on the outside and trying to work inwardly always fails and always will fail. My track record, I've seen that take place. I've tried that many times. Trying to look good, trying to fix myself up. You know that saying, fake it until you make it. That's just not a going way to please God for this whole thing, friend. It's nothing but sawdust in the presence of Jesus. When you come into His presence, you being good at any time in your life is not going to work for you. Begin on the inside, and that will take care of the outside. Wash the pots and pans. Spend enough time on the inside, the outside will inevitably be clean. Now, before we can take or seek remedy, we have to admit that we're sick and admit that we need a doctor. Matthew 9, verse 12 says that it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. We need to remember that we can't try and patch up our own circumstances. Don't try to put Band-Aids on something we can't take care of. Can't do that with cancer, can you? We need to go to the doctor, the great physician who has promised by this connection. I am the vine, you are the branches. We had this couple Sabbaths ago in our memory verse, in our memory lesson. You are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. There's nothing we can do on our own, friends. But remaining, he says, abide. Staying with him, staying connected to that vine gives you what is needed. The great physician also says that he will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. That's the words of the real surgeon. And Christ is the surgeon. He works on the heart. And it's not just a regular doctor. A doctor can give you maybe medications and help you slow down. And I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but maybe Merlin could explain that a little more clear than I can, friends. But that's the way I see it. I need to go to the right physician that specializes on that heart, that knows where, if I need surgery, how, where to place the instruments that are needed to make me well. I'm glad that Jesus knows what he's doing. Don't you? I can trust him. I need to trust him. And that's done daily, on a daily basis, friends. You know what's good news about all this is? Especially for today. How about the cost? You know, I get sick nowadays and I worry about getting sick. Because what it's going to cost me is going to be a worry for myself. How much that's going to cost me. Who's going to pay for it? The insurance, if I have insurance, is that going to pay for it all? I can't even pay for insurance, friends. It makes a person want to move to another country like Canada or Europe somewhere, where they can receive insurance on an easier basis. And I don't know if it's any easier. I really don't know. I'm just speaking from the top of my head. This country is wonderful, friends, the way we live with it and all the expectations I expect from it. It's right here as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to the great physician, what is the cost? And this is the good news, friends, for you. It costs nothing. But there's bad news that comes along with that. It costs everything. It costs nothing in terms of dollars and cents, but it costs everything in terms of surrender and saying, God, I need you. I don't want to be like those whitewashed tombs out there in the cemetery in the days of Jesus. I don't want to be like the blind followers that were following those men. I don't want to hear the words that Jesus cried when he was standing there. The words he said, when he said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem," with tears in his voice, friends. And I don't want to disappoint him in any matter. Yes, it costs nothing, but it costs everything. And friends, this is where we fall into line with what Jesus needs us to understand about this whole thing. There's no charge from the doctor. I have to stay in touch with him too. And what's neat about this, I have to stay in touch with him the rest of my days. Not just today, but the rest of the time. And that might involve me also not having any discharge too. How about that? I'm here in a home where I can stay with him. I'm wherever my family is. Be there with him. The rest of my days, going from patient to patient, telling them about the good news, and telling them about that great surgeon and that great physician. What a wonderful privilege, friends, it is, when we read hard-hitting chapters like this chapter 23. Jesus' last stand there on those grounds with tears in his voice as he spoke those words. And his friendly invitation to all of us is still the same. Come to me, friends, he says. Come to me, children. Won't you just please come? Won't you accept him now? Accept him in your heart, that he was leading the right way. So you can stay here in the hospital, stay with the doctor, have the doctor underneath his care, his abiding care, until we can see him face to face.